Let's talk about those ADHD assessments that a lot of you are interested in getting, especially millennials and Gen Xers that either were misdiagnosed when they were young and they're wanting it later, or they were diagnosed when they're young and they're curious about getting treatment as adults. My name is Ann. I'm a therapist, licensed in the state of Wisconsin and Illinois, and I'm an ADHD specialist. This is what I do. I work with individuals, couples, groups, and families all around these topics. Yet today we're doing ADHD assessment. So as someone that's done formal ADHD assessments, I want to share some things with you. Let's talk about you're interested in going to an assessment. Let's just educate on the proper steps. Now, if you're in a different state, it may be different. I know in Illinois and Wisconsin, this is just the standards of practice and care for ADHD assessment. You want to go to your primary care physician first. You think you want to go to a therapist, psychologist, or maybe one of those kind of sketchy online ADHD assessments because you're yearning for an answer that you're like, I need to go to these people to see. Here's what I will tell you. You start with your primary care physician, and here's why. As someone that's done ADHD, formal assessments with individuals, one thing that I have told people is that if you have a sleep condition, I can't diagnose you. If you have heart conditions, I can't diagnose you yet till I know that it's managed. These medical components have to be managed. If you have sleep apnea, you got to be treating it. If you are someone that has PMOS or other things related to hormones like hypothyroidism, if you're not managing it in your levels, I can't diagnose you because these things, heart health, it could be anything from eyes and ears because we found that those impact attention. There's also things like substance use. You have to be sober at least 90 days before the assessment for me to get an accurate representation of the symptoms. Are you sitting there on screens for 18 hours? Yeah, you're probably going to have ADHD symptoms. So until I see that you are mitigating those things or eating, food and mood affects attention. If you're someone you're like, yeah, I kind of eat when I want to and I eat 400 calories a day, or you're someone that you have other things that are going on medically, those have to be managed first. And I can't sign off on that. Medical providers are the only people to do. So whether it's your primary care physician, a nurse practitioner, whether you see a PA or an MD, whatever it is, your primary care physician or a medical provider, you need to check out all those boxes before we can even move forward. That's the part people get really frustrated about because they feel like the wait time is there. Well, here's the thing. If you're an adult, 30s, 40s, 50s, you've already been suffering this long, to get an accurate assessment, that is the most important thing. It's not to seek out a diagnosis for an answer. If you are sitting here and saying this has to be the answer, that type of desperation, I understand it, and it is a patient right to ask for these ADHD assessments. But if you are not taking care of the medical parts of your body and your life, then the medical mental health part, it's going to put a barrier in me assessing you. Now, here's the thing. You can find a lot of those online platforms and therapists and assessors that will still diagnose you even if those things are going on. Some of us have different ethical standards. It's not one way or in between. And some people, if I tell them these things, they'll actually go to other people and try to get other assessments and get second opinions. That's also a patient right. Yet I will tell you that if you want a thorough, honest, I'd say inclusive, because I'm looking at the whole picture. This also includes culture. So individuals will come in and they'll talk about perfectionism, which is very common. Perfectionism, shame, and affecting relationships long term is really common. Yet there are cultural components I need to look at too. So if there's things like, oh, I got, really good grades, or I got really bad grades, or I did this, we're looking at your whole life. Okay. We're not just looking at now, we're looking at your whole life. And it's not just taking someone's word for it. We need proof. And I know that that's really tough when you're an adult because you're like, how come I still have those things? I don't know if I have. You can access your past school records, but we need to know a full picture. We can't just look at how you're suffering now. So now let's talk about how aging impacts it. So again, this is the medical part too, whether it's any type of andropause, menopause, perimenopause, there's also just aging and memory changes. Sometimes people have traumatic brain injuries or they have injuries to their head or their ears and their eyes and they see things change. This is a lifelong diagnosis, you guys. It is not something that just shows up. It doesn't just show up. Even if people are really good, I was really good at masking it too. But when I went to an ADHD specialist and I got diagnosed by a psychiatrist and a therapist very early in my 20s, it was lifelong. There was things they could point to all the way, and I just didn't know that they were. Okay. Now, it doesn't just show up. So when someone says to you, like, oh, you just started having these symptoms and you just had a child, right? Could it come up? Yes. And start becoming more obvious? Yes. But if it just showed up and you have no history of it, someone's not going to diagnose you with it. whether your kid has it or not. Okay. The other component to this is other mental health conditions. We cannot diagnose ADHD if it is better explained by something else. Now, some people will say, well, yeah, but I developed anxiety, depression, OCD, or some of these other things or eating disorders from this ADHD. Absolutely, 110%. Yet we will be able to see as an ADHD specialist, when you come into us, we'll be able to see how that progression has happened and what pushed those other symptoms to come forward. And you can, yes, have dual diagnosis. So that's dual diagnosis just means you can have more than either two or more diagnoses. And I will say, if ADHD in childhood goes untreated, things like OCD, depression, anxiety will show up. It's not if they will or not, it's how they'll show up. So that's just important to know. So the other thing that's very important is other mental health conditions that can impact my diagnosis. So things like trauma or PTSD. Now, with PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, or even obsessive compulsive disorder, there's other ones like autism spectrum disorder. Not everybody with autism has ADHD. Can it go together? Yes. Yeah, there are these other diagnoses that if they're not treated or there's questions about them, I tend to say, let's take either a neuropsychological standpoint. If there are multiple diagnoses you're looking at, like you're saying, I think I have autism or ADHD or an ADHD, or I wonder if it's OCD, or I wonder if it's bipolar disorder, I wonder if it's a personality disorder. I say then we want to go to a psychologist for a neuropsychological evaluation because that takes the full picture, including development, learning, other things. So if you think that this is bigger than just ADHD or you're wondering if there's a dual diagnosis, I tend to say this is where you want your primary care physician to refer you to a psychologist, a neuropsychologist. So you want a neuropsychological evaluation. Now, if it's just ADHD or you've done all those things and they want a second opinion, things like that, then an ADHD assessment is great. I just want to give you some key points to kind of like start with if you're on this journey and a little insight into how we look at it. And I really hope individuals, I was watching a video where someone was saying they watch the educational videos about people that do assessments to find loopholes or to get diagnosed. I tell people, you are not helping yourself or others by doing that because here's the thing. Once you start doing treatment or once you start taking medication, we will be able to tell very quickly. As ADHD specialists, if you come to us, we will be able to tell. The other thing is it's a patient right to ask these things, to be curious, to reach out and ask for information for an assessment. That is a patient right. That's why they're created. Yet what I do want to point out to you is being curious is not enough. It's about getting accommodations at work or school. It's affecting your daily living in every single area of your life or a lot of them that it's affecting. It could be affecting things like your sleep and your other health conditions. But you can't just get an assessment because you're curious. There's something called fraud, waste, and abuse. People aren't going to like this. Some people, even therapists, call me a little stuffy for this. But fraud, waste, and abuse is something federally that we need to make sure we're not billing, giving treatment to things that are unnecessary. It has to have a functional impairment. Now, people can call that stuffy. It is not about money. These things were created because people were overdiagnosed and overbilled and wronged. This is my way of not just, you think I'm protecting the system, I'm protecting my patients. Because in the 1980s, when people were thrown into institutions, they were overdiagnosed, overmedicated, overbilled. That affects an entire system. This is my way of giving back. When I'm very careful about what I do, it's so that you can have an answer and confidence from a specialist that I am thoughtful, that I am systemic, that I'm consulting at least in threes, that I'm considerate about the things that I'm doing and I take it very seriously. It is patient-centered practices to do those things. So whether you're considering it, the best person that knows you is your care team, which could be your therapist, your psychologist, it could be a psychiatrist, it could be a primary care physician, or another medical provider, like if you're with a neuropsych team. Whoever it is, go back to your team and talk to them. Remember, it's a patient right. And if you have any questions below, you can either send me a message or get a hold of me. Evolve and heal on, my friends. Good luck.